Hello and welcome to the At Odds Pod. And we've got an international week spectacular for you. It is me, Sam Farley, with Sam Boswell, and of course, Jake Ashton, as always. Look, guys, before we get stuck into this, how have your weekends been?
Good. Pretty. Obviously, had a limited Prem schedule. Bet-wise, I think we came out reasonably okay. Well done. Who had Anthony Gordon to get booked? Yeah, well done, Jake.
I had big Anthony Gordon.
Good shout. That was a good shout. Don't forget, guys, do hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our episodes. We do quite a lot of content weekly now, and we're churning out the winners. So well done, Jake, because I think you sort of covered the sins of my weekend.
But yeah, I think, didn't we?
Sorry?
We had a good week, didn't we?
Pretty reasonable. I haven't got the stats in front of me, but I definitely didn't come out behind, so that says something for once. But yeah, how was your weekend, Jake?
Really good, yeah. Obviously, my weekend's always about football, isn't it? And we went 1-0 up against Wolves after like 50 seconds, and then standard procedures after that. So, yeah, good weekend, great weekend. NFL, I actually watched a little bit of NFL too. I was texting you two boys about a bit of handbags in one of the games that I was enjoying. So
you loved that, didn't you?
I love that a lot. Yeah,
are you handbags needed?
Nearly. I'm very close now. Very close.
Well, this Sunday might be a good opportunity, given we have a slightly different and unusual football schedule. As mentioned earlier, international break. That means for people like me who love England and love international football, I'm going to have a great time. For Sam and Jake, who are a bit more into their domestic football, it's a bit of a quiet fortnight. But look, we're going to get stuck into the games. We're going to talk about England first and foremost. Friday, they're over in Milan at the San Siro to face an Italy team who haven't made the World Cup. Then Monday at Wembley, the first game since the passing of the Queen, England versus Germany. It's just one of those games that everything's kind of written in the stars for, I think, isn't it? At a time of probably more patriotism than usual, we're facing the old enemy, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So look, let's start on the Friday with England, Italy. And Boz, like myself and Jake, we've got different bets. We've got things we want to talk about. You don't have a bet, but you want to tell us why you don't have a bet.
I personally looked through some of my very boring spreadsheets I keep on football, and international football outside of major tournaments, I have a horrendous record of. Potentially it's knowledge gap, potentially it's discipline, potentially it's just a bit unlucky. There's not the biggest sample size to work with. I do think the idea of the Nations League is a good thing. I don't know whether I just feel like I'm watching too much football generally to appreciate it. Maybe when you get a week like this, you think I'll take it off. Maybe I'm still a little bit distressed from the Euro final, if I'm completely honest. And the idea of having us to watch us play the Italians again might just be doing me in. But for the most part, we were talking off air, and you were suggesting that it's a really good week to be betting on international football because we're so close to the World Cup now. I don't know. I think players are still holding a wee bit back. I get what you sort of think. If you're a fringe player, like I almost feel like if I'm having individual player bets this weekend for good outcomes, so goals, assists, I'd be looking at fringe players that are getting starts that potentially are on the edge of making it. I think it's their chance to shine, isn't it? And that's sort of my thinking. I want to see team lineups. Be very interested to see what Southgate does. I think he'll be desperate to get the win over Italy to avenge, obviously, what's happened. But will he have one eye on that game at Wembley? Which is the bigger game, Sam? I'll ask you that, considering you're going to one of them.
Against both, actually. But yeah, I would say tough question. Germany at home.
It's the Germany game, right? It's the Germany game is the bigger game.
I think it has to be because I think this is probably the first time in his time with England that he's actually under genuine pressure because of that awful run of games in June. And I know I spoke about this previously. I think there's a lot about those games that at the end of a long season, all these things, I think you kind of can't read too much into them. But a lot of people who didn't like Southgate have used that as kind of fuel for the fire. And I do think, say, if we get beaten in these two games, the atmosphere going into the World Cup is going to be horrendous. So I think we need to kind of get a good result. In particular, Germany, the final game before the World Cup, obviously at home as well. I think if it comes to a point where come 10 p.m. on Monday night, you've got people booing off the England team at Wembley ahead of a World Cup, I think we're in a whole world of trouble. So,
But
yeah,
Southgate's not going to get sacked unless literally we could get battered 4-0, 3-0. He's not getting sacked 6 weeks before a World Cup.
no.
So, in a weird way, does it matter? He's not going to get that lovely friendly against a random nation where they can put about 8 goals past them, and you get Peter Crouch doing the robot. Remember that against, was it Jamaica at Old Trafford? I seem to remember. Absolutely
Trinidad, I think.
No, that was at the World Cup that he scored against Trinidad. But I seem to recall.
Right, yeah.
I seem to recall we seem to have these friendlies, don't we, beforehand? But I don't know. I just think from a betting proposition, sometimes I just need to take a bit of a pull. So I'll be having a look for fringe players to outperform, maybe look at man of the match markets, or if they're a forward-thinking player, a goal or assist from them. But I'm a bit nervous, and I like Southgate. I must say I'm a bona fide Southgate in. He's taken us to places that other managers with better squads have got nowhere near. He deserves a lot more respect. He was a penalty shootout away from being an English icon and legend of the game forever. I really get saddened by how much crap he gets from people. He deserves at least to get into the World Cup. After the World Cup, probably need to have a conversation.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Look, let's start with Friday, England, Italy. Do you have any thoughts on this one, Jake?
I think it's going to be a tough game. San Siro is obviously going to be an amazing atmosphere. Italy, again, haven't qualified for the World Cup, so these games are going to be massive for them, and I think that it's going to be tight. I can see that you're backing England to beat Italy, though, which is very, very surprising for me.
I just look at this team, this Italian team. I don't think they're what they were even, 18 months ago. They don't have Chiellini at the back anymore, and I know he's a bit past it, but I think that leadership was still huge. So you're going to have Bonucci partnering, I think, Acerbi, Bastoni in a back three. Then that midfield, they're missing Marco Verratti, who, for my money, is by far and away their best player. And they're going to be led up front by Immobile, who I genuinely, I don't think I've ever seen the guy have a good game. Scamacca, who hasn't really done it for West Ham as of yet. So I look at that team and I don't see anything to be scared of. I think Tonali's a good player. Barella's a good player. I mean, they're not bad players, but I think there's something we can get stuck into. I think we need to go there. And I know people going to be like the same old boy in England because they are going to play quite a conservative way out there. But I think I've kind of had this argument so many times. In tournament football, the team that goes out there and tries to outscore the other one very, very rarely wins. It is about being conservative and being pragmatic, and it isn't fun, it isn't sexy, but that is ultimately statistically how you win. So I don't really have a problem with the team doing that. I think we'll see Harry Kane play. I think we'll see Mason Mount, Sterling, and hopefully what I'm really hoping for is to see Rice and Bellingham in the middle together and just see how that dynamic can work. So I think that's maybe the biggest question I'd have going into the World Cup right now. But I think you get an England at 17-10, nearly 2-1 against an Italian team I don't think is brilliant. England, this is a dress rehearsal, if you like, a bit of a revenge game as well. I just think that's a really nice price. And to kind of follow on from what you said earlier, Sam, about value, I think there's big value in this international window because I think normally I'm a bit wary of internationals. I think you always see somebody like France, they're 3-10 against, I don't know, Romania. It's a game they should win, 99 out of 100. Yet inevitably they don't because it doesn't really matter if it's not a tournament. But I think this is so close to the tournament that it does matter. I think these games, whether they matter or not, actually is maybe not important, but I think the players will go into them thinking they matter, which is important to a positive outcome. So England at 17-10, I think, is a lovely bit of value, which takes us on to England-Germany, which I know, Jake, you've got a bet for. So let's talk about that one.
Yeah, first of all, I'm just thinking about in terms of the actual teams that he plays. I think me and Boz will probably be more interested in these games if he does play like Ivan Toney and people like that, and he gives them players that are just outside the squad a chance. But again, is he going to do that? These are our World Cup warm-up games, so it's going to be very, very interesting. One other thing I will say, which might upset you both, I'm not having Mason Mount in my first 11.
No, he's not in mine either, the current form, unfortunately. I think at the last tournament, I was a bit disappointed with his contribution for England. And yeah, I'll be honest, this season he's not shown enough for me to get excited about or want him in a starting 11. I hope I'm proved wrong and he comes good because I know Southgate likes him, and we'll touch on whether Southgate is on his favourites too much. But I tell you who I'd like to see come through and play 180 minutes of these two games, Harry Maguire.
Yeah.
I think
if
he
there's
has
ever a
to.
man that's needed to play two games back to back and keep a clean sheet in one of them and impress, or get a goal, or just have some sort of lift, because Southgate, I do think he has a place in an England shirt. Weirdly, I know his form has been pretty shocking the last 12 months,
Yeah.
but I do think there's something about him. He has played well for England, and I don't know who starts at centre back for us at the moment. And I think it will it could be Southgate plays the team that we all think, oh, don't play it, but he might need to play players like Mason Mount and Maguire to justify starting them in 6-8 weeks' time whenever the World Cup kicks off.
Yeah, that is
I think
true.
you've got a very good chance of seeing Maguire start. I'd be surprised if he didn't. And I'd say you mentioned Tony. Whether or not he'll start either game, I don't know. He'll definitely come off the bench. There's no point taking him if he doesn't, unless he's a real bad character around the dressing room, which I could almost imagine given some of the stuff he's
Oh, you've been
saying.
buying it. You've been reading the Sun too much, Stan Farley. Come on.
Maybe. So, Jake, tell us about your bet for Germany.
I'm backing England to beat Germany, and to be honest with you, after listening to you two speak, I'm feeling slightly against it more. I know Boz kind of puts me off backing England a bit. It is purely down to just the whole patriotism thing. God save the king. It's going to be massive night at Wembley, I think. Obviously it's going to be the first game at home since the Queen passed away, and the emotions are going to be running high. And I just think 11-10. I touched upon Neuer not playing for them before we recorded. Obviously, they have got to Stegen, but Neuer is massive in terms of the distribution and that defence as a whole. So I think that's going to be a massive miss for him too. 11-10, I just think, is a decent price for England to win.
I think with Germany as well, they're a good collection of players, but there are definitely some problems there that I've not seen an answer to yet. Notably, centre forward, they're going to play Timo Werner most likely, and I think he's a good player, very good player, but he's not quite at the level I think you need to be at the very top of international football. And then the back line is a bit of a mess. We don't know exactly who will play, and there's some kind of lesser known guys in there as well. But I think the midfield, and in particular that kind of front three that can play behind the striker, you've got Sane, Gnabry, Musiala, Thomas Müller, like some fantastic players. That scares me, but I think ultimately England should have enough here if they play to their best. So I'd be with you on that. Although I prefer the 17-10 on England to beat Italy than I do the 11-10 on England to beat Germany, but I do think both will probably happen.
You've nearly taught me into a patriotic double, lads, but I'm going to hold steadfast and not jinx England. Sam, do enjoy both those games. Well, I've asked the lads to try and find us some other international football bets, because I'm going to take a pull here and I'll go on to hosting duties for a second, because there was nothing that I felt I knew. I didn't have enough conviction with my international football bets to put anything up and put my head on the line. You'll see my best bet later on this weekend is actually an NFL bet, so stay tuned for that. But international football-wise, there's plenty going on. You'll be able to watch it here, there, and everywhere as well, which is great. Jake, you've not strayed too far from familiar territory with your bet, but I'm impressed at the price, because we wouldn't be getting odds against your selection in the Premier League.
No, so I've gone for Erling Haaland to score against Slovenia on Saturday at 11-10 now. We've obviously already seen him this season tear apart the Premier League, and every week now he seems to be getting shorter and shorter. I'm pretty sure I saw 1-3 in some places for him to score on Saturday, which is absolutely insane. But anytime I can get odds against him scoring, I just think it's a great price. the fact that City have sent over one of their main club doctors to Norway is unreal. Like, they've sent him over. He's going to become part of Norway's actual setup now, just because because Haaland's been so impressed by the way that he's helped him since he signed for City. He's going to be going on international duty with him every single time that they go away now, which is
I don't think that's going to help the old the old rumours around Pep's magical medicine, is it? But
exactly. Yeah. But
alleged rumours.
Yeah.
Let's be very careful. Sam.
Alleged,
alleged. Yeah, I don't know what
11 to 10 for him to
about
score.
someone else.
These are again his last 2 international games before next year now, because Norway didn't qualify for the World Cup, so I can see him scoring in these games.
Fair enough. No, I think that's sound logic, and yeah, I'm sure he does like playing for his country. And I read somewhere he may well get the armband. Is that correct? I think he might be captaining.
Yeah, apparently so. Yeah, apparently they're giving the captain's armband too.
Well, I mean, no one better really. Give it to your best player, don't you? Sometimes it works out. Sam, you've picked a team that I feel like I jinx every time I bet them on a non-World Cup game, and it's Portugal. Tell me why you think at 4 to 5 they're good value, and I can get over my jinxing and get them to beat the Czech Republic.
I'm kind of with you to a degree. They're a team that seemingly ruin my bets more than they don't. But I do feel, like I mentioned earlier, this is crunch time now. This is a serious warm-up game. This actually matters. And Portugal, they're currently second in that group, behind 1 point behind Spain and 3 points ahead of the Czech Republic. But I do think you're going to see a good performance from Portugal here. I think 4 to 5 on a team that has so much attacking talent is really worth doing. So obviously got Bruno Fernandes, we all know about him, Ruben Neves, Bernardo Silva, we know them about from the Premier League. Going to have Ronaldo through the middle, banging in goals as he so often does on international duty, Diego Jota, and then Rafael Leao of AC Milan, who has been really, really, really good recently. And I think it's a very scary team. And I just think at 4 to 5 to beat a Czech team that, I mean, beyond Zuček, you know who I mean.
Zuček, yeah.
Zuček, sorry, I can't speak today. And Kufal.
Quite out of form for the Hammers, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, beyond him and Kufal, who like, this sounds incredibly arrogant. Who do they really have anymore? Like, this isn't a vintage Czech team, and I think to get 4 to 5, nearly even money on Portugal is brilliant, and it's one I would certainly be chucking into an ACCA for sure.
No, good stuff. Well, I suppose, Jake, that takes us into the regular feature, which we've had to adapt a bit. So fill us in on how we're going to play banker bust or draw.
So banker bust or draw this week. There's going to be a mixture of the international break and some EFL action too. So, well, I say EFL, I've actually looked below the Football League and gone into the conference. So that's what's going to happen this week. That's how much we're struggling for a banker.
Slim pickings.
Slim pickings,
okay.
Exactly. So what should we do first? Should we go for the banker first for each of us? So, Farley, I'll start with you. What's your banker this week?
Banker, Belgium to beat Wales. They're just far better, aren't they? Ultimately. I don't really have much analysis. The kits are nice. Eden Hazard looks like he's getting back to his best.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's much else to say, really. Wales not worry at all with Gareth Bale and co. Or...
No, I mean, I know they always improve, but like at the Euros, I think we still think about Wales with Bale and Ramsey as what they were. Was it France when they were kind of at their peak, 2016? Yeah. The team we saw in the Euros last year, they weren't all that. This Bale isn't what he was. Ramsey certainly isn't what he was. And I think Wales are not particularly good anymore. So I wouldn't worry about them.
I'm going to clip that and get that posted on our socials in
Please don't.
November.
I don't want to.
And
in November.
The Ultras will unite for once in condemnation.
Cheltenham joining together to take me down.
I was going to say, you have to watch your step, aren't you?
What's your banker for this weekend?
Right. Well, Jake, this is kind of going to... I've just clocked that we've kind of share the same opinion on our best EFL bets, and my banker comes in here as well. So I'll try not to talk for too long. Bradford to win against Wimbledon. Don't understand the price. They should be shorter in my book. You look at their recent form, they've conceded just 3 goals out the last 5 games. They won 3-0 last Saturday, and that was despite a red card against Stevenage. Came through past Tranmere in midweek. Before that, they're at home. They're 5-6. I really don't understand why they're not shorter. I'd make them 2 clips shorter, at least from my very basic knowledge of that league. But I did take a little look round. They play an AFC Wimbledon side that currently sit in kind of peril, I would say. They're sat in 17th, but it's obviously quite tight because it's early days down the bottom. But they did manage to get a win last time out, having had 4 straight defeats in a row. I just think they'll ship goals. Bradford will win. Sorry, I've got no real... I can't really charm anything else out of it other than I think it's a banker bet.
No, I agree fully. I agree. My banker is Wrexham to beat Torquay. Horrible price, 1-5. But Wrexham are second in the league. They do actually need a win because they've drew last weekend, and Torquay in 20th. I think it's just pretty straightforward bet, to be honest. Bust. I'll start with my bust first because it's a bit of a strange one, admittedly. But I've got France to drop against Austria. I think that France are in a similar position to England where they've not won in 4 games now. And I just feel that Mbappe, going into that French squad, he just seems to cause a bit of mayhem wherever he goes. He's pulled out of advertising campaigns for France in the last week because he doesn't feel like he's suitable for those specific campaigns. So he thinks that he's above them, basically, which is a bit of a madness. Didier Deschamps, what's he going to say? He's not going to kick off and cause disruption again because it's happened once before with the France squad and we saw how that ended. But I just think Friday they play, against Austria. And Austria, Ralph Rangnick, what a manager. I'm not going to go on about Ralph Rangnick being a good manager, but I think 1-4 they are, and it's just too short a price. Boz, what's your bust for this week?
My bust is actually Germany play Hungary on Friday night, and I was finding it really hard to find a bust, and I wanted something at a price I thought, that's a bit short, and I could happily take them on. And I then thought back to watching Hungary pretty much take apart England back in June. Obviously, they beat us on the 4th of June and they beat us on the 14th of June in that sort of sequence where we had quite a few games played, didn't we, in a short window. And this is a Hungary team that got a point at home against the Germans fairly recently. They only lost 2-1 to Italy. Don't really understand why Germany are as short as they are. And I thought Sam's point about a team kind of individual talent without looking, and always think of typical German sides, don't you? Kind of organised, ruthless, and even a moderate German team could give you a game. I just think Hungary, bear in mind they top the group as well. Now, we obviously talk, don't we, about how certain things are important or not important. I think this Hungary side have got a great chance of some serious Nations League glory. And they'll grasp it. And I'm quite happy to take Germany on at the prices.
I like it. Farley, you've gone for Germany too.
Yeah, Germany are my bust. Like you say, I think Hungary are probably better than people think they are. A very cohesive team, even though they're not sort of laced with huge stars. And they will cause problems for Germany, I think.
Nice. I like it. Quickly for the draws, I'll start off. Croatia, Denmark. Denmark and Croatia, their games, just having a look at it, unders all the time. Seems like a tight game. I just think them 2 teams are going to draw. Admittedly, it's tough for the Nations League, but that's my pick for this one. Boz, your draw for this week?
I actually think England-Germany. I've got a funny feeling this could turn into a game which is tight, edgy, not particularly free-flowing. I just think both teams won't want to go into that World Cup off a loss. I think there'll be players out there with one eye on getting through the 90 minutes, having got through the game earlier on the Friday that both play. I don't know, there's just something about this game, the pomp and ceremony that's going to go behind it will probably be a bit of an unhelpful distraction to the England players. I don't think it's going to be a benefit to them. I think the Germans might feel a bit awkward about even being there. You know, it just, to me, it screams 1-1. I'd probably play under 2.5 actually instead of the draw if I was having to have a bet on the game. But that was my draw.
Fair enough. Farley, your draw, I was actually going to pick the same one, but I tried to be a bit different. But I think your game's got draw written all over it.
Yeah. Scotland versus Ireland. I mean, this is a game. If there's anybody watching this who isn't, from either of those two countries, they are a sicko. This is truly a dire game of association football. I'm bored just talking about it, so let's move on.
Right, let's move on quickly. We'll move on to the EFL actually, because as Boz touched on before with his banker for the week, he's gone for Bradford to win against Wimbledon. I've tipped that too for this week, and I don't think there's too much else that I really need to go into for the reason behind it. Again, 5-6, great price. Wimbledon have lost the last 4 league games. Bradford unbeaten in 9 at home in the league. Everything just points to Bradford win. It's the typical game for an ACCA where it's 20 minutes into the game and Bradford are already 3-0 down and they've ruined your ACCA. But 5-6, great price. Farley, I'm looking at your bet now, and Ipswich are a very good team, and I'm not sure if you're just backing Argyle to get a point here with green tinted specs, or you actually are fully backing your boys.
No, genuinely, I'm pretty realistic when it comes to Argyle. Like I'm probably maybe more pessimistic than I probably should be, if anything. But I look at this team, look at this game. I think Argyle have been very good at home park. It's turned into like a bit of a fortress this season. Ipswich, good team, very good team, best in the division. They're only 2 points ahead of Argyle, coming down to Plymouth. It's on a Sunday as well. Don't forget, it's been moved for TV. It's at 12:30 kickoff on Sunday. That's not an ideal time to be playing a game of football. And I think it's going to be tough for them. Maybe not something a lot of those players are familiar with. I can't imagine many Ipswich games are kind of kicking off at that sort of time on a Sunday. So I just think at 5-2, these are two of the best teams in the division. A draw helps both of them, if we're honest. They live to fight another day. And I just think it's a very good price for this draw.
I like it.
Could
I
be a
do
score
like
draw,
Ipswich
though,
this
1-1.
season. Yeah, I like Ipswich this season. I think Kieran McKenna looks like a good manager too.
He certainly does.
Shall we move on to a different sport now? Farley, do you want to take it away for a little introduction to Sam Boswell?
Yeah, well, it is, of course, horse racing. It is a Sam Boswell special. It's what he lives for. It's what he thinks about at night. Do you know that meme where there's the husband laying next to the wife and she's thinking, what is he thinking about? It is Sam Boswell thinking about a horse.
Occasionally.
So he's going to give us some news about the Arc, and in particular, mention a lovely little anti-post bet for you've got for us for next month.
Yeah, so Baid is out the Arc, who we put up at 33, which is a crying shame. He's going to Champions Day at Ascot instead, where Baid will not want the likely conditions, which are fairly soft undergoing usually because it's at the end of October. But a horse that will like it is Trushan, who will be likely to run in the staying race, ran over the extended trip. Now, you may well have heard of this horse. He's ran multiple times this season, winning the Northumberland Plate back in June on the all-weather, which came carrying top weight in there, which is a fantastic effort. He then went to Goodwood, where we had a brilliant finish between Kyprios, the winner, Stradivarius, who you guys probably will recall because he's been around forever, and Trushan in third. Interestingly, Stradivarius, the suggestion is that he won't be seen again this season. Some firms still got him in the betting for this race. I'm a little bit surprised as to why one I work for removed him. The last day he did go to Doncaster and I was a bit disappointed. He ended up second, getting beat by Coltrane. But what you've got to remember is the ground that day was recorded as a good to soft, but I don't think it was. I think it was a lot quicker than that. Alan King's comments afterwards were that he didn't want to let himself down in the ground. It's okay, the ground, but it's left its mark. So it's interesting. There is a chance he doesn't go here. That's always a risk of anti-post. But the reason I like him at 4-1 is the favourite in the race, Kyprios, who's beaten him before, has probably other targets. So you can take him out. Stradivarius, we believe, is retired. He's a 7-1 shot in there. Just shouldn't be a 4-1 shot. So I back this each way because if he shows up, he'll run and place. I think he'll win, but you'll get your stake back more or less if you back in each way at 4s. So yeah, I think he'll win. Other bits and pieces, horse racing wise, just to fill you in on. Obviously, the codes are coming around to change season, so we'll try and keep an eye on Cheltenham. I don't like talking about Cheltenham this early, but we have to beat those pesky tipsters out there that seem to want to put horses up for Cheltenham so early. It's a bit like the only thing you can do is beat them. And just a little stat for you to show the interest in the Cheltenham Festival. The Arc de Triomphe, which is a massive flat race, takes place in, 10 days' time from now. We've had more bets on, I think, 4 or 5 individual horses to win at Cheltenham, which is 6 months away, than we have for the front 2 in the market at Cheltenham, the likes of Allaho. I mean, it just shows you that is the level of interest there. So it's amazing because people seem to want to tell me that there's no value in anti-post betting at the festival this early, but people are doing it. So we're going to have to jump on that train, and I'll try and dig out some value where we can.
I like it. I like it a lot. Now, Farley, let's move on to NFL now. I was just trying to see if your bet last weekend was a winner. I think you had the Lions and the Giants in the double.
Both won.
Go on, the Lions.
Both won. Superb tipping from you there, Farley. Now, what have you got for me this weekend? Because there's no Premier League football. I'm not going to be having a bet on that. I need something for Sunday.
This is
something.
I can't remember what the bet was last. How much? I think it was like 3-1, 4-1 last week. This week we're going for an 11-2 double, which is it's quite high. But 2 games I'm focusing on. Falcons will beat the Seahawks. I think the Seahawks are absolutely awful. Don't think the Falcons are that much better, to be honest. But they're a good price, so I'm chucking them in. And then the other one I've gone for is the Jets to beat the Bengals.
Ooh.
Which this is the bolder of the 2 shouts and the one that will let us down if either do. But the Bengals offensive line is pretty much non-existent, and that just worries me. I think the Jets are actually moderately capable, and as a little outside bet, I do think the Jets are quite a nice price. So for me, 11-2, that's what I'd do. But I know there's another guy on the team who's got a nice little NFL bet this weekend as well. Or is that that's coming later? That's coming later.
I'll save it for the treble. Ignore me. While we were on NFL, really quickly, what's gone wrong with the Bengals, Farley? Because they were a good side.
So they're kind of the 2 most important positions in the game are the offensive linemen, who obviously protect the quarterback, the 5 guys at the front there, and the kind of pass rushers who are on the defensive side, who are the guys who effectively go around the outside and try and hit the QB. If you don't have good ones of those, you're not going to do well, to put it in layman's terms. And the Bengals offensive line is awful. I think they were very lucky at times last year, and they got through some, particularly in the playoffs, they got through some games that they probably didn't really have any right to do just because Joe Burrow balled them out with some magic. And I think now you're kind of getting the comeuppance for that. They're reverting to type slightly. And I've always said quarterbacks are brilliant, but the team with the best defensive line will be maybe not win every time, but they'll be definitely in the conversation every time. And the Bengals just don't have that at all, which is, I think it's going to be quite a long, hard season for them, despite some of the brilliant players they do have on the roster.
No, good analysis. I enjoyed that. And as the seasons change, and what's that I can hear in my ear? Saturday evenings, you pop round to visit your mum. What's on the telly? It is, of course, Strictly Come Dancing. So, Jake, I have to suffer this. I have to watch it for work purposes and try and understand what's going on. Strictly Come Dancing, Jake. Come on, give us a tip.
Right. I am a sucker for Strictly Come Dancing now. I don't want to big myself up or anything, but I did have an 80-1 winner on Strictly.
Here we go. After timing is not welcome here, Jake.
Bill Bailey, 80-1. Oh, it went down a treat just before Christmas. Your winnings are paid out too. Now, I've tried to look at the market for this year, and value-wise, it's tough to find. Now, the favourite is Fleur East, who she was on X Factor. She was in the Jungle. 3-1. She's got previous experience, obviously, of being a dancer with her singing. So that goes against what a lot of the actual people who vote will be looking for. I try and look at people who haven't really had any dancing experience, people who just don't look like a dancer. I think the British public love an underdog like that. Now I've gone for James Bye to win at 25-1. Who's James Bye?
Yeah, who
Exactly.
is he?
Neither of you two
I have
know.
no idea.
He is an actor in EastEnders. He plays Martin Fowler. He's the third actor who's played Martin Fowler, actually, right?
Well, after what unfortunate events occurred to the other
After
two?
some unfortunate events that I don't know if we can go into on the pod, but he's the third actor who's played in now. Friday is going to be the launch show where all the couples are announced, but here on the Odds Pod, we like to get some inside information. And looking at the pairs that have been announced, our pick, James, is with Amy Dowden, who is a pro dancer who's been on Strictly now for numerous years, I'd say 5 or 6 years, and she's done well each time. She came second a few years ago with Kareem, who's also on BBC, and she's going to be partnered with James, and she's going to make him a good dancer. Now, 25-1 is a big price. She's never won it. No,
that's good. She's got the hunger.
Exactly.
She needs to get on that tour.
Now, admittedly, another couple who are a good partnership is Helen Skelton and her dancer Gorka. They're second favourite at 4-1. So a lot of people in like the previews, the reviews have been tipping them to win at 4-1. But it's just not really value for me in terms of Strictly. I want a 25-1 big bet that spans over the course of the show. Again, James Bye, 2 of the last 3 winners have been from soaps. The British public who watch Strictly and vote on Strictly are the same public who watch the soaps too.
So Jake, is there a little bit? And the BBC would say there isn't. But the BBC surely love one of their own winning it. And
well,
also,
we saw that with Rose last year. She's an EastEnders actress.
Also, let's be honest. If you're a soap actor, if you're an actor, a trained actor, you've probably had some sort of rudimental dance lessons. And I would make him 100 times shorter. Like, the difference in price between him and Tony Adams is mad. Tony Adams is a 40-1 shot. He's a 25-1 shot. I don't understand it. Like, he should surely, like, realistically, you've got the likes of Kim Marsh from Hearsay. I suppose she's got some dancing experience. Matt Goss will have had some dancing experience. Will Mellor, another actor, will have some dancing experience. But I think he's going to be. I think he shouldn't be that price. I'm definitely involved, and I'll be having a tenner on. There you go, Jake. You've won me round.
Again, it's a good price, and some of them names you've mentioned have actually been partnered with new dancers this year, and the British public do not like change. They hate change. I say the British public, I'm just talking about my grand, to be honest. But they don't like change, and new dancers coming in disrupt the makings of the show, and it'll be a different face. And people like to bet on the same people and back the same people. So 25-1 James Bye. It's a nice little short price bet that you can have. And again, hopefully it'll see us through till just before Christmas Day. So it's a good one. Now,
I love that.
A new section of the show that we like to have is Twitter questions, and there are some weeks where we don't get any questions in, and we would love to hear any questions that you have. Again, on Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, anywhere you'd like. But this week we've got 2 questions, so we'll start with James, the FPL Avocado, who has asked us questions before, and we do love hearing from him. He's said, it's more of a general betting question that he's got. He said, which type of football bets do you guys have the most success with? Now, I know we've answered this a little bit a couple of weeks ago where we was talking about what our actual favorite bets are, but he's saying what actually do you have the most success with in terms of bets. So he's talking about ACCAs, over 2.5s, both teams to score, in-play cards. He says, I personally find bet builders to be tough unless playing really, really low odds. Now, we all love a bet builder here. Boz, you love a card bet, I know that. Is that what you're going to go for as your favourite bet to have on the football?
So I guess it comes down to what do you want your bet to do? And favourite bet versus profitable bet is interesting, isn't it? Because he mentions over 2.5 goals. Well, he's already got a built-in bias if he's saying over 2.5 goals. Like
Yeah.
it's a both sides of a market, that one. But naturally, all of us are guilty of this. If we're putting a bet builder on, how many people I mean, the market doesn't exist yet, but how many people would back under one Mo Salah shot or something? Like, no one wants things that aren't going to happen or not to happen. You might as well just back nil. I mean, apart from I back 0-0 sometimes if I'm watching a game because I want to jinx it, if that makes sense. But,
Yeah.
like, realistically, I like what I'm profitable at, which is in-play card. Here's another tip for you, James, as well. I enjoy profiting from my bets because that's part of the fun. I think the card market at the moment is still quite immature. It's only a season and a half old. There's a lot of variance to cards with the likes of referees, tackles, VAR. Personally, I think in a couple of years' time, you won't be getting 6-7 to 1 on fullbacks to get cards. I think it'll only go one way. They'll shorten up. And the best example of that you mentioned is both teams to score. Back in the day, both teams to score used to be a massive price in comparison to what you get now. Then everyone started landing like 10, 11 folds on them and they dried up. So favorite bet for me, I enjoy cards. I quite like in-play as well because in-play cards, if you're watching a game, you've got a good idea of what's going on. But yeah, interesting. Bet builders, I do them, but you know, I get the odd card double up on a bet builders, basically as lucky as I've got, I think.
Before I ask Farley what his favourite bet is, I will say, Boz, in terms of your card bets and your card doubles, you tend to always put them on as singles too. And how many times do you have 1 out of 2 lands? But
if you get 1 out of 2 and they're 5 to 1 and 6 to 1, like you're fine, aren't you? I guess that's the way of looking at it. I buy card bets as well. I'm not backing Xhaka every week, put it that way. Like I am trying to find a bit of value. And you know, the Gordon shout from yourself last week is a great example of probably a player that's in a position that you wouldn't traditionally think would get booked, but the way he plays the game, because you know that. I don't think it necessarily gives you an edge over the bookmaker, but I just think it was the wrong price.
Yeah, definitely. Now, Farley, what is it that you like when it comes to a football ACCA or both teams to score bet singles? Is there anything in particular you like? Or
yeah, so I think we spoke about this before. I track my bets. I put everything into a spreadsheet, and it kind of breaks down how successful I am via sport, via individual markets, via all sorts of stuff. And first of all, I'd really recommend doing that because I think if you can actually understand where you're going wrong and where you're going right and where your strengths are, that instantly puts you in a better position than 99.9% of other punters out there. So I think that's a really good thing to do. Personally, for me, I echo what you say about bet builders. There's something I actually looked through my kind of P&L market by market. It's the worst for me by a huge margin. When you hit one, there's nothing better. It's fantastic, but I think you've got to accept they maybe aren't the way you go and win unless you're doing kind of 2 very short things to do. And my best ones are kind of 1x2 bets, a team to win. And again, with this, if you go on to like a league level, the Premier League, I'm okay, not like probably profitable, but like marginal. It's when you go to the lower leagues and when you go to foreign leagues in particular, I think you can do better because when you're betting on foreign football, I often find, Spain, somebody like Cadiz, for example, I probably watch Cadiz once a year. I don't really know much about them, but I'll actually take a really good look into the analytics and work out an angle. And that does me better than when I watch Barcelona play and I think, look, I watch these guys 7-8 times a year. They're good. They're going to batter anyone. And I go in with a preconceived notion of what this team is without the analytics necessarily backing it up. So I think betting on kind of the less popular football helps. And just to echo what Sam said as well, unders are by far one of the best ways to go for me personally. I bet I win quite often on teams to win to 0 and under 2.5 because I think there's some teams, Wolves being a prime example, under 2.5 will land 9 times out of 10. It's a lot harder for a team that is awful in front of goal to suddenly be involved and good defensively to be involved in a high scoring game than it is for a high scoring team with a good defense to suddenly let in a load of have a blank and and have a poor game in that attacking sense. So for me, I think when others zig, you've got to zag, and that's something I'd say is a good thing to do throughout kind of betting. So yeah, unders 1x2 on kind of less well-known leagues, and just kind of keep looking for angles, really.
Yeah, I agree. James, you've said about in-play cards, and that is my preference for a bet. What I will say is, if you are having an in-play card bet, first of all, make sure that you've got money in your betting account, because you do miss the value when you're stuck depositing. I've done that before. Even if it's just a fiver that you think you're going to have on, get that in your account before the kickoff. And secondly, to follow on from that, just watch the game. If you can see a player who's made 2 or 3 fouls, the referee's already given him a warning. Sometimes bookmakers aren't quick enough to price up or slash the odds. Try and get on the value ahead of them.
Watch the substitutes as well, because I always feel a lot more confident, and the prices probably do get trimmed as a result of it. I feel a lot more confident when a team's towards, like, they got one sub left and they're a goal behind or whatever, or they're defending if you've got a midfield maestro, they're not going to bring him off. It'll be the forward that's going to come off to throw on the extra defender or whatever. Like, common sense needs to come into it. Like, you've got to put yourself in the shoes of the manager if you're looking at that 70-minute mark and the team are winning. I mean, the lazy bet is just to back the goalkeeper to get booked, and I'm down on that this year. It always felt like a good angle. I interestingly need to run the numbers, but I've got a sneaky feeling if you were to back pre-game all keepers to be booked, you'd be down, but not as much as I'd be down for doing the in-play ones, weirdly, because I think they're so short once a team goes 1-0 up, especially if it's an underdog, and you can rely on the likes of Pickford, but that's about it.
I think one thing I do want to add as well, and I'm so guilty of doing this. I always have, quite often, I have a number in my mind when I'm placing a bet. Like, I'll go do an ACCA, I'll put on a tenner, and I want to get 100 quid plus out of it. That is not how you bet. That is really bad betting. I do it all the time. I do it with bet builders. One of the reasons I'm rubbish at bet builders. You are so much better if you're just doing, I mean, don't go mad on stakes, but just do small kind of stake singles. And it's all about kind of, I'd say, frequent but small will generally do you better than going for kind of these long bets that are, so hard to land. Just kind of, it's all about slow accumulation. And ultimately, something we always say, this is something like sports betting should be something you enjoy. You're doing it for the enjoyment rather than doing it to really earn the money. That's the sort of byproduct of it. So I'd go for smaller stakes and just kind of accumulate and keep going up that way.
I agree.
Good shout.
Great shout.
We've got another question there, Jake.
Yeah, we've got another question from Ashraf Uddin, who I think this is going to split us a little bit, actually. He said he's a big fan of Southgate and what he's done for England. But when he took over, he said he'd pick players on form and not on reputation. How do you guys feel about the fact he has now clearly gone back on this and he's picking players on reputation and not form? Now, before I do ask it to both of you, I know Boz has said in the past, this World Cup is different. I'm going to take his reasoning. With this World Cup being in November, there's not a lot that Southgate can do. He's not got many games to work with for those players. And that's why I feel that he, at this point, is picking on players who he's comfortable with. I think if it was a Summer World Cup, there'd be players in there through form, they'd be in the warm-up games, and they'd be in this squad. Do you agree with that, Buzz? Agree with what I've took from you?
Yeah, I guess quite a good analogy for Southgate's job's probably a bit like when a prime minister gets elected. So if you've got to pick your cabinet, you pick your people you trust. They do okay and perform reasonably well, let's say. When it comes to a reshuffle and a chance just to freshen things up, your chances are move people around and it's similar faces, a couple of new ones blooded. Gareth Southgate, realistically, what's the shelf life of an England manager? He's probably exceeding it as he is right now. He's on borrowed time. I don't mean this in a nasty way, and this isn't leveling it at Gareth. Why should he go out and, for example, pick a load of young players to play against Germany or Italy, get battered, and end up going into the World Cup? It's easier to take the safer option. Literally, I'm not saying this would ever happen, but if you gave an England manager a 10-year contract, I think you'd see a lot more in terms of looking after younger talent coming through. And we've seen it with the 21s, managers being promoted to that and the link with the 21s. But to my eyes, that's the biggest problem. You've always got that human doubt, and it's trying to keep us, the fans, happy. Sam's not going to be happy. If you go away to Italy, Sam, and you see him pick a young team and we get battered 4-0, are you as happy as if we come away with a point with an experienced side, honestly?
I'm probably one end of the spectrum. I love seeing
It's a long way to go to get beat
but
4-0. You're not going to forgive Southgate many of them. Come on.
Yeah, I'm a lot less bothered about losing than, especially when it's not like a tournament game. When it's a tournament, I'll be out for blood, but the rest of the time, I'm kind of less bothered. But I think this whole I think the whole thing's like this is such a, like, it's a question that shouldn't really exist. No disrespect to Ashraf there, but like this whole, like, yeah, he's not going to pick people purely on reputation, because he said that when he came into the job, and he's dealing with a bunch of players who failed for years. So he's going to look at new people. He's now got to a point where, whether or not you like the style of play, you've reached a semi-final and a final in the last two tournaments. These are players you can rely on. You have proof that you can rely on them. So it is a bit different to the situation he was in when he came into the job. And look, I'll say this. This thing annoys me, because you always hear this leveled at managers. When the team has been successful, these things happen. Germany did all right in 2014 with Lukas Podolski in the squad, because they know what he's about. They know what he brings to the team. He didn't deserve to be there on merit, but he was trusted by the manager. And, they went on and won the World Cup. So ultimately, it's all well and good. We all love the shiny new toy. We all want to see... Look, I really wanted to see Anthony Gordon in this squad, but ultimately, he's got a couple of weeks to bed them in before going off to a World Cup, and it's better the devil ultimately. It's not like you've got a situation where I remember we had Rashford came through before 2016, I think, and he was playing. He's probably one of the best players in England out of nowhere. If there was a case where somebody had done that in his past few months, they would be in that squad. But Ivan Toney's probably done better than anybody. He's made it. I do think this is a bit. You're on a bit of a hiding to nothing. You get angry if he's not picked people. And I know Ashraf personally. I know he's an Arsenal fan. I know what he's getting at here is it's always the centre backs. Oh, why is Maguire there when Ben White has been playing every game? Ben White's been playing every game right back.
Yeah,
he may as well not be playing. It doesn't matter. And Maguire, the whole Maguire thing. I'm getting annoyed now thinking about it. The amount of goodwill that Maguire has earned in an England shirt, people shouldn't even be questioning if he doesn't play again for Man United before the World Cup. He still shouldn't be questioned about going. He's been nothing but exceptional for England his whole time with England. He's an important part of England's attack plans as well, in terms of set pieces, where we've been so devastating in the past. It's madness to me that he's questioned about Maguire. I kind of get it more with somebody like Connor Cody. I understand a little bit more, but even then, we saw at the Euros the way they talked about him as being a dressing room kind of presence and what he brings to the team. It's all well and good having. If Ben White, is he going to start for England? No, he won't. Is it better if you've got somebody who's not going to start to have some guy around the camp who's really kind of bringing things together, getting the guys together, or just have a guy that's going to be, I mean, no disrespect to Ben, don't know anything about him, but might not be kind of quite as good in that sense.
Ollie, are you basically advocating that Southgate takes a comedian to the World Cup?
But these guys, and Christ, I really don't like Jordan Henderson as a footballer, but the guy is professionalism personified. I understand why you'd want to take him, because ultimately, if you've got guys who are not going to be starting, and in all honesty, probably aren't going to be coming off the bench in most games, why not take the guy that's going to be setting the tone around camp and kind of really getting people ready for games? And I do think these tournaments, you have to take those things into account. You really do. Anyway, rant over. I'll stop.
We're safe to return now, I think, Jake.
Well, he's starting 3 centre-backs at the World Cup, isn't he?
Yeah, so you've got to take loads of them.
So what 3 centre-backs is he starting?
Oh, hate this game.
Oh,
Stones will start.
Yeah.
I don't want to see Stone. Why don't you play Walker on the right-hand side of one of them?
Don't
And
want to see Stones.
Walker who gets out of trouble because of his pace, but that pace doesn't look as quick as it used to. I don't like that personally.
I really like Walker as the right-sided centre half. I've got to say.
Still,
I think he gives enough there. He can pop, like when Reece James would be my choice at right back. When Reece James goes forwards, you can move Walker across, off, like switch him around if you have to. And I think his pace, the pace of Walker, really helps somebody like a Maguire, who that's not his natural game. We know that now, but I kind of get that. I'd probably go Walker, Stones, Maguire, potentially take out one of them for Tomori, but Maguire would actually be the one I would 100% keep above any of them.
They just, I don't know. We'll try the England squad on a special.
You say Maguire you'd keep over any of them?
Yeah.
Oh, fuck off.
No. Who do you think's more likely to make a mistake in an England shirt, Maguire or Stones? For me, Maguire less likely.
Harry Maguire's got the weight of the world on his shoulders, lads.
No,
you can talk about, oh, he's been in good form for England. He's been shit for United for the last 12 months.
Yeah, but United have been woeful till the last 2-3 weeks, haven't they? So
anyway, because they've took Maguire out, that's why.
We could go around in circles all night, but we come to the best bets for the weekend. I'll kick off because I need to, because I'm going NFL, and we're heading to Miami, who were really impressive last week, considering I thought Lamar Jackson had put them to sleep. I think they were, 2 scores clear, Farley, at one point, weren't they?
Yep.
And then what happened? Miami got the weapons out. They have got absolute weapons. And Tungaloa Tua has been given so much shit online. Honestly, if you think Arsenal fan TV is bad, you guys should check out some of the characters that pop up supporting the Miami Dolphins. Now, I am very much a Brit supporting an NFL team that he probably doesn't have enough knowledge to compete with them on. But geez, he was getting hate and heat, wasn't he, all last year, Farley?
Yeah, I mean, he's been very unfortunate in his career so far. The team they paid a lot to get him in the draft. Then they went out trying to chase Tom Brady. The coaching staff didn't really seem like they trusted him. He had an injury at one point when he was drafted. And it feels like now they finally, for the first time, given him some weapons, and they're actually giving him some trust, and he's paying them back in spades.
And they've got to play the Bills, who are a really good side themselves. I think that's fair to say, right, Sam? They're obviously up there with the best
side
of them.
In the NFL, probably.
But Miami +8 is 8-13, and I think they'll go. I don't think this game will be as explosive as I'd hope it would be, but I'm definitely sure that if I can get Miami that much of a head start, I think they're fairly rock solid to go in our treble, and we'll go into the fourth quarter with them within touch. I was really impressed with how they bounced back and didn't crumple. They will concede quite a few, I suspect, but I think they'll score as well. We've got enough weapons on the pitch. So Miami at 8-13 +8.
I like it. Jake, what do you got for us?
England to beat Germany. I'm not going to go into detail about it again, but that's my bet for the week. I just think 11-10 is a big price, massive price, and it'll be a good price for a treble too.
Well, you talk about big prices. This is not one of those. This is 8-15. This is very stinking. I don't like really doing these, but when it comes to a treble, I think occasionally, you've got 2 reasonable prices in there. Stick in a little something just to sweeten the pot slightly that can't really lose. And for me, I shouldn't say that, shall I? Ukraine to beat Armenia.
That's Armenia winning 2-0 now.
I had a little look at the Armenian squad, and I mean this with the greatest of respect to.
Could we get clubs.
In it? No, I genuinely don't know a single player that's in these squads. Most of them are Armenian clubs. The sort of clubs that aren't in Armenia that these guys play for, there's 2 at a Cypriot club, one at Silkeborg in Denmark, another in Randers in Denmark, not even Premier kind of clubs. You got a couple
Mkhitaryan not getting in, or what? Mkhitaryan?
No, he's not there.
Oh.
He's not there. You got a couple of other lads in Russian clubs at Rostov, at Krasnodar. And then you got CSK Sofia, Columbus Crew, for crying out loud, Slovan Bratislava. I mean, these are pure Conference League players at best. And I tell you what, Ukraine, I know they didn't beat Wales when it came to it in that playoff, but against Scotland, I thought they were bloody brilliant.
They've got plenty going for them.
They're a good team, and at 8-15, I'm happy to chuck them in any bet for this weekend. Sweeten the deal.
Okay, well, we're keeping it fairly safe, aren't we, this weekend with the treble? But don't forget, guys, we'll be back next week. Plenty going on that we'll be covering off. Do give us a like, do subscribe, and get your questions in. We love to hear from you. We do appreciate the views and the listens as well. We put this out on a variety of places, but if you want to add your comments or questions wherever you listen or take this in or watch, we'll certainly try and cover them next week. Guys, anything else to add?
One thing, that's just over 4-1 on that treble.
That's
which
pretty
I think
tasty.
is quite nice.
Hopefully,
Nice.
we'll go into Sunday night with it being live and well, and Miami can do the business, or I'll be in trouble next week. Well, big thank you for watching, everybody, and take care. Enjoy your betting. Gamble responsibly. Have a great weekend.
See you later, everyone.